My only encounter. So, I, now 44M, was doing an overnight gig in a building downtown, Portland, Oregon, for security. Some brief description of the building. 5 stories tall. Top floor was a culinary arts school. 4th was offices. 3rd was the security office and also building management. 2nd floor was closed off due to the culinary school storing extra pots, pans etc. inside. There was a spot on the 2nd floor that overlooked the mezzanine. Only 2 ways into the 2nd floor, elevator with a code, or stairs with a key. Mind you, the elevator chimes loudly and the stairs has heavy fire doors. This is important. I had passed the 2 Hispanic cleaning ladies on the 5th floor and decided to walk the stairs down. All was well until I hit the 2nd floor. As I come out of the back and down the hallway towards the mezzanine, I heard, I swear I did, 2 ladies having a full-on conversation. Didn't make out what was being said, but I know I heard it. And it wasn't the cleaners because they didn't have a key for the stairs, and even if they had the elevator code, I was close enough to have heard the elevator chimes. As I approached the area, the talking suddenly ended. I got to the area I thought it was, smelled perfume in that and only that spot. I checked the women's restroom. Nothing. Checked downstairs. Nothing. I would have said, okay, a couple of ladies were downstairs talking and it drifted up here. Only I could smell the perfume in one spot. I asked the supervisor later and he said he'd had weird things happen in that area as well, but that was my only time experiencing that. Haunted house. When I was a teenager, my dad's house sat right across from this old graveyard. That place was full of weird experiences. One night, I woke up to the sound of kitchen cabinets slamming open and shut. Figured it was just my dad rummaging around for a midnight snack, so I opened my bedroom door, which opened to the view of the kitchen, to tell him to keep it down. But when I opened the door, I saw every cabinet door was wide open, and no one was in there. I even yelled for my dad, but all I heard in response was his loud snoring coming from the basement. I closed the cabinets and doors and went back to bed. The next day I asked him if he had been making noise in the kitchen the night before, and he said he was sleeping and hadn't been in the kitchen. My next experience was one night, my dog suddenly started barking like crazy. Now, this wasn't his usual behavior unless he was dreaming. I turned over to look at him to try to calm him down, but he was fixated on the closet door, pointing his paw at it like he'd seen a ghost, no pun intended. As I looked over at him, he stopped barking and started whimpering and hid behind me, shaking like crazy. Then, the closet door creaked open, and I heard someone, or something, dragging their feet across the carpet, right up to my bed. Frozen with fear, I watched as the sound stopped, and then I jumped up to turn on the lights and nothing. No one was there. I spent the rest of that night camped out on the living room couch, cuddling my dog. The mystery of our hometown. So this happened 2 to 3 years ago. And I remember it was Eid Mubarak, which is a holiday for Muslims. And in my country, Indonesia, there's a tradition that you can go to your hometown with your family. I live in a city called Bogor and my hometown is in a city called Cirebon. So me and my family is going to Cirebon this year. And we planned that we will also meet our extended family in my grandparents' house. I thought it was going to be fun, not horror. But things started to get weird. When we arrived in our grandparents' house at about 4 p.m., we see a bunch of people, we eat, we meet, and we play. And in 5 p.m., me and my cousins, let's say their names are Josh, Dud, Randy, and Melody, decides to go to our grandfather's cemetery. Not all of our cousins wanted to visit the cemetery, but we are the only ones that dares to visit the cemetery. We have to take a route to a very small road and walk to the woods. So we arrived and we see some of our family in there praying in our grandpa's grave. Josh, Dud, and Melody is joining our family to pray, but because besides the cemetery is a dark forest, and me and Randy got a little bit naughty and decides to explore the forest a little bit. But I think we go too far, and we heard a terrifying scream like curse him. Then, Randy saw a black shadow with red eyes behind a tree. We were not moving and we almost had a heart attack, because the shadow just we saw is super tall. Like maybe 6 meters. Also, I think that the shadow was a mythology monster from Indonesia called Genderuwo. And lately, people said there was a child that was kidnapped by a ghost there. But in January 2024, in our grandparents' house, I got an information that there was a voodoo doll in the house's backyard. And I think the scream curse him is related to the voodoo doll. So what do you think? The peeking floating head ghost. When I was young, my family and I used to live in an apartment complex. When I was about 7 to 8 years old, my brother and I shared a full-sized bed. Don't remember what time it was at night, 10-ish. All the lights around the house were off except the kitchen light because our mom was doing dishes. Yes, hand washing, no washing machine. The only sound that we could hear was water running and dishes being clunked together. My brother, 1 year older than me, we started to tug for who get more of the blanket while our heads already on the pillow. But suddenly he stops and whispers to me, "What's at the door?" I look over him and scan the doorway entrance. Nothing there. I fixate back to my brother and ask, "What are you talking about?" And he stares at me blankly and says, "The corner." I took a look once more and saw a Chinese opera lady face staring at me, painted face white with pink and blue makeup. There was no way this could have been a prank. Around the corner of the doorway wasn't anything that they could have stood on. I was so spooked that I looked back at my brother for comfort, dead asleep. How was that even possible? 1 second he was awake and 3 seconds later sound asleep. I was so terrified that I pulled the blanket over my head and just suffocate myself to sleep that night. Yes, the water and the dishes was still being washed at that time. Next morning I was scolded by my mom asking, "Why did you cover yourself last night? You were sweating." So dumb, I brought this topic up to my brother and he had this dumbfounded look on his face when I asked, "What are you talking about?" At the moment I realized that it wasn't meant for him to see it, only me. Scary, I know. So as time passed I felt like the ghost entered my brother's body just to warn me that she was here for me only. I still get chills when I tell this story to my friends and writing about it now. More weird things has happened too, but I'll save it for another time if you guys are interested. Thanks for the read, my first time actually writing this out loud for the public to see.